Hello all, welcome to TechGig webinar. Today's session is second in the Linux operating system series, and topic for today's webinar is Exploring the Hidden Treasures of Secure Shell. We are delighted to have Mr. Gaurang Pandya, Infrastructure Security Architect at UNIX Global Services India, as expert speaker amongst us today. Mr. Gaurang has 11 years of enormous IT experience. He has wide experience in IT infrastructure management, IT security, technical support services, and security consulting. Gentlemen, the presentation will continue for 45 minutes and you can ask your questions to the speaker by typing in the chat pane available. So without further delay, I request Mr. Gaurang to continue with the session.
Good evening all. Okay, so I'm going to share some of the least used features of Secure Shell. Let me begin with some introduction to the Secure Shell. Okay, so this is what we are going to cover in today's session. Inline commands, multi-factor authentication, automatic command execution, transparent SSH gateway, tunnel creation, and multiplexing. So this is these are some topics that I'm going to cover in today's session. Okay, to give before going into presentation, most of the Unix or Linux administrator or even any device such as firewall router is currently managed using SSH. Previously it used to be Telnet, but nowadays Telnet is getting ruled out, and people have started using SSH because of so many features that it has, including some of these which I have listed here. And the core reason why people are moving from Telnet to SSH is because it gives data encryption. If you're using Telnet and if there is a malicious user acting in between, has opened up a sniffer, will easily be able to find out what's happening in the Telnet session. But whereas Secure Shell, as the name itself says, it gives secure access to shell. It it encrypts the data and does many other things along with it. Provides replay protection, integrity, authenticity of the information that is being transferred. So that's why SSH is being preferred nowadays. So in this session, other than showing what are features that are there in SSH, I would also go through some demos on how actually to use them in live environment, which will help you make best out of this session. So let me go into the next slide of the real definition. So as per Wikipedia, this is what SSH means: is a network protocol for securing data communication, remote shell services, or command execution or other network services between two network computers that it connects via secure channel over an insecure network, a server and a client running SSH server and client programs respectively. The protocol specification distinguished major versions that are referred as SSH 1 and 2. So if you see, the key thing here is secure data communication, which is what I just said. It does using encryption. And shell access, of course, right? Secure shell, as the name says, SSH, secure shell. And command execution and other network services. So what exactly this means is what we're going to see in the presentation today. The command execution, when we'll be doing a remote command execution or auto command execution, when we create a tunnel, we'll actually be doing the later part of it, which says secure network services between two network computers. So this is in short about SSH, and I have created a small topology here In my laptop, I have 3 virtual machines running, each one running in Fedora. One is client, another one is gateway, and third one is server. So I'll be going through the demonstration part of it using these 3 hosts. Let me do some. Okay, so if you see ls in the client box, it says this is client. I have created a blank file which says this is client, just for identification, it'll help us. And in gateway, there is one file which says this is gateway. And in server, there's a file that says it's server. Currently, I am able to, okay, let me go into the slides. We'll be moving into SSH commands. Okay, so first, doing SSH into a server is fairly simple. SSH, then IP address. Now, if you want to give a username and password in the command itself, there are options for doing it. Let me do SSH to gateway. It's asking me for password, and it by default has taken root as username because I have currently logged into client as root. Let me not log into it now. Alternatively, I can say username at host name, and it will try to log me in as that username. So this is how one would log into the other box. Let me actually log in. So now I am in gateway box. This is gateway. So I've exited the gateway and back to client. So this is just to give small intro about how SSH works and how to access one server from another. So what we just did is secure shell access, wherein which I was getting direct access to shell, remote operating system shell. What we're going to see now is execute command in remote host without logging into shell. Okay, what we just did is we logged into the shell. We are directly logging into the box and then we are executing commands. Whereas if I want to execute the same command without actually logging in, I can do is the command says SSH hostname and then command. So SSH gateway ls. Now it's asking me for password. I give a wrong password. Okay, so if you see, it says after giving a correct password, it says this is the gateway. So it had actually executed this command ls in gateway server, not in the local machine of client. So this is how one would execute a remote command. So I mean, any command can be executed this way, provided that user, whichever is logging into the remote gateway, has access to that command or has privilege to execute that command. So let's say I'm doing this, and I'm getting a listing for the entire root directory. Same thing in a different format. Now to try something else, I can say cat /root/ this is gateway. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to execute a command which will give me content of the file. This is gateway. Okay, and content is blank. That's why I'm not seeing anything there. what I can do is I can alternatively try writing something there just to show that we can. So this time, okay, so it has actually given the content of the file which I had just created. So it's, I mean, it's up to us. I mean, we can give any command right in there. It doesn't mean we can also give command. In this case, the command is cat, and parameter that was given along with it was the file name. So it will just execute this command without setting any TTY. So there will not be any terminal getting associated with this command. Now, how do we get it done and why we need it? We'll come to that part very soon. What we just saw is inline command execution. Now I'll move on to next interesting feature of multi-factor authentication using keys. Well, let me first tell you what multi-factor authentication is in short. You know, whatever I just did, I logged into Gateway was using my password, which is single factor, which means there are 3 factors that can be used for authenticating. One is what I know, and another one is what I have, and third one is what I am. So what I just use is the first one, which is what I know, which is password. I mean, I knew the password, that's one factor. And I can add second factor to it is what I have, which would become a key, a public key, private key combination. And that password, that key will have a password. So I should have that key, and I should know the password for me to be able to log into remote host. So that becomes multi-factor, two-factor authentication, wherein which if I not just by having the file, I would be able to log in, or neither just by knowing the password for the file I would be able to log in. I should know both. Only then I'll be able to log in. So that is some info about multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. And let me show you how exactly at command level it can be done. So the 3 things needs to be done for that. One is generating the keys itself, then copying the key, in this case public key. Of course, private key should never ever be shared with anyone, and it should never leave the host for which the key is been created. So private key will remain with the client. The public key, respective public key, will be shared in server and would be done using this particular second command of SSH copy ID, and then logging into third step is to log in using the key. So let me first, I already have generated some keys, so probably I can delete those. So whenever we generate a key, they get stored in, the home directory, ID_RSA. So this, if you see, let me do a full listing of file. So this file ID_RSA is my private key. If you see, permission to it is read and write only for root. And this ID_RS.pub is my public key. And the permission to it is RW for everyone and R for others. RW for me and R for others, including group and others. So these are keys that I already have. Just for the session, let me go and move this key somewhere. I don't want to delete it because some of my keys that I use. So if you see, there are no more files called ID_RSA in .ssh. directory in my root directory, in my home directory. So by default, it creates these two files. Of course, we can rename, give different name. We can place it somewhere else, all that. But this is default. So let me do a fresh creation of files now. If you go to the presentation, it says SSH-keygen. Now there are so many different parameters that can be given with it. Come on. Okay. So hash dash dash help doesn't work with that, but a man would tell you. But let me not go into different options. I would just create plain keys. It says enter the file name to which save the key. By default, as I said, it is creating here. Don't want to change it. It's asking for passphrase. I'll give a passphrase here. Okay, now it has created the file. It says ID underscore RSA is private. This is public key. Let me go and verify that. So you have them again, and they have just got created. So, okay. So how do I now? Next thing is to just by having keys doesn't do any good. So I'll have to let the remote SSH server know that this is my key. So for that, the second step is to SSH copy ID space hostname. Let me do that. I'm going to copy this ID. By default, as I stated earlier, it will copy only public IP address. I mean, that's what it should do. It should never ever, I mean, a private key should never leave the local machine. So we should give only a public key there. So and this command will copy that public. There are other ways of doing it as well, but this is a lot more simpler. Gateway. This asks me for gateway's password. Now if you see, this has taken root as a username. What it does is, when I log in, it's inserting my key for this particular root only. So if I use the key that I had just generated, I will be able to log in only as this particular user and not as any other user. And I'll tell you how or why. So what it says is, now try logging into machine with and this file has been already given to this key has already been added to this file. Now let me try logging into gateway. Since it has the file now .rsa, it's by default taking it. Now I need to enter the passphrase. So it has not asked me for password. It has asked me for passphrase for the file. Okay, there I go. I've logged into gateway machine. Now it has asked me as root. Now if you remember, I had said it will put the key only for that particular user. Now I'll show you where the public key has been installed. The file path is given here. If I just do. So these are some keys, and the final key is this. This is my public key that has been copied from that machine to this. Now if you see, there are other keys also, which is in some of my previous keys that I had used. But this is the key that I had recently added to this file. So since this file is in root's home directory, this the file .ssh underscore authorized underscore keys, that's why I'm able to log in as root. If this file was in other user's home directory, then I should be logging in as that user. If you see, this is the key. 4A's, B3, 9Z, C1Y. So this is the key that it has copied. So other way could be, opening this file in VI in remote host. In gateway machine, I can open this file in VI and then just do copy paste the .pub and append it in towards end of the file. That will also do the trick, but this is a lot more simpler, using copy as SSH copy ID. So now I'm into client, and what we had done is all the three parts of this. We had generated a key, we had copied a key, and then I had logged in with that key. Now if you see, there is an optional Ikey file name. Let me show you what it means. So currently I have the file name as ID_RSA. Now let me rename it to something else. Okay, now if I do SSH, it's asking me for password because it's not able to locate this file. What I can do is, since I have a file with different name, I can specify that file name here. Now it's asking me for passphrase again. So there's one more trick to it. If you see, if you remember, during creation of a file, it had asked me for a passphrase. Now if I don't give passphrase, it would no more remain multi-factor. It would just remain single factor of what I have. What I know would go off because there's nothing to know. There is no password for me to know. So it would become single factor, but it would do something else. I can show you that. Let me generate a different key now. It might override the older one, but that's okay. So it's asking me for pass. Okay, it's asking me for the file name. I don't want to override the other one. Let me create the other one. And it's not asking me for password. It says empty for no passphrase. Just press enter. Just press enter again. Now it has created a different file. Same different file key, private key and public key combination. Now let me copy this there. I already have logged into gateway. Let me so this is in gateway. I changed authorized keys file. I've appended that file, that key. Now let me log in using this new key. I have to give private key name here, which is this. There you go. It did not ask for any password, any passphrase. I've logged in without anything. Yes, there is a problem. This is a security breach. It could create, if this private key comes in a wrong hand, then you are into problem. But there are reasons why one would do it, and of course the better practice is to have a passphrase there. But if you see, I was able to log into Box without any password. All I have to give is just SSH, and I'm in there. It just authenticated me using my what I have factor. Let me go into the next section. Remote command execution. So if you see, I have already given a key there. I need to change this authorized key in remote server for me to be able to remotely execute a command. I'll do it like this. What I'm saying here is execute this command, and then there is a space and the key. This I've done in gateway machine. Now let me try logging in with that same blank key to gateway and see what it does. It's not asking for anything. It's plainly listing me the giving the list of files that are there in the gateway machine in slash. Now, how would you know that it is actually displaying the list ls of the gateway machine? Let's do something else. Instead of doing it for a slash, let us do it for the home directory of root, where we have a file with name this is gateway, and it says this is gateway. So what it does is, when you connect using this key, which has a blank password, to this server which knows the key, it first sees the key in its authorized key file, and then it says, okay, there is a command that needs to be executed, and it executes this command. And it does not do anything else. It does not give you shell access. It does not allow you to log in. It does not allow you to enter a password. I mean, enter any command. When you connect to it, all it does is this, nothing else. So this can be used in some kind of automated backup of trigger or triggering some automated scripts. You can use this thing. So that was auto command execution. Now using inline command. Now, okay. Let's move on to some interesting topic of transparent SSH gateways. What it means is, let's say I need to, from client, I know I have to log into server. Let me see if I'm able to log in. Okay, it's because I've created something before. Rename that file now. Okay, now it's asking me for password, and I'm logged into server. But let's say that there is a situation where in which you are not directly able to log into server, but you have to go through an intermediate gateway, SSH gateway, and then reach the server. Then how would we do? Let me create one such scenario by changing host.allow and deny file. Now I have configured this box server to allow connections SSH only from gateway, not from client. Now let me try doing the again, SSH to server. It's not allowing me to do. Whereas from gateway, I'm able to log in. Okay, now again I'm logging into this because I have a key. I have pre-configured a key into this for some of our future exercises. So I'm able to log in to server from gateway. Okay, let's see. So currently I'm not able to log in from client to server. What I can in alternative do is, I need to use gateway as host, so I can use this command -t gateway host SSH and target host. Now if you remember inline command execution, where we had given ls at the end of the SSH, it had executed that command. Now I am going to give SSH at the end of the command. Okay, let me give this first and then show you. It's asked me for gateway's password, and since there is already no trust between server, gateway and server, it did not ask me for server's password, because if you remember, I have created a key in gateway with empty passphrase to log into server directly like this. So because of that, I have not been asked to type the password for server, but still I'm able to log into server from client without actually going SSH, without first going to gateway and then from that shell typing SSH server. So it's like using inline command itself, I was able to achieve it. The -t, which I've given here, means create a terminal. Otherwise, as I stated, it will not create a terminal when we give a TTY, when we give a inline command execution. Let me show you what happens if I don't give the T. Come on. Still I'm into server. Let me log into client. I don't give this T. All it does is just hangs, because there's no, okay. Say sudo terminal will not be allocated because stdin is not on a terminal. I mean, SSH needs a terminal, but there was no sudo terminal associated because it doesn't do when you give inline command execution. So all you have to do is ask it to allocate a terminal using -t. And there you go. You have from client, you're logged into server. The next trick to log into server. Okay, there are problems with this. Is not a completely transparent approach. If you see, I had to type gateway's name, and then there was a command after that to reach the end target, and it can only be used for remote shell access. Now you can't do SCP, secure copy, over this type of configuration. And transparent SSH gateways using automatic command execution. Let me do that. So now what I would do is we have a file in gateway host. We have a key in gateway host which allows us to log in without any password, right? So I mean, it doesn't matter. I can log in with password also. Doesn't matter. Let me change this command to server. So instead of giving ls as a command, I gave SSH server. So once I connect to gateway host, this command will get executed automatically. So let me log in. Let me go to client, and this time since I have changed that file name. No, I have not changed the file name. Okay, so I can just say gateway. It's asked me for gateway's password. Let me log in. Okay, since I think I'll have to give the key name. Let's say 1. Okay, so if you see, since this ID_RSA file had no password associated with it, it did not ask me for any password. I had asked to log into gateway. It logged into gateway. It executed this command. Come on. SSH server from gateway and gave me access to server from client directly. So the command that I gave is just SSH gateway. So this is using auto command execution, and next way is using config files. If you see, I had to give name here as gateway, SSH gateway. So to make it, look good, I can create a config file and say these two things have already been done in previous step. All I need to do is create a file, say host as hostname and remote hostname. I'm just giving any name. I can give SVR, but yeah, let me give SVR. And then say gateway. This file I've created in .ssh.config. Now if I say SSH SVR, I need to give the file name key name because I have renamed it. Now people will think that I'll okay. SRV. Okay, so I have given server, I did not give gateway, though since because of this file I've logged into server. I'll show you why. I've logged into server directly. So it's because of now if you see, when I click exit here, it says connection to server closed, and then it says connection to gateway closed. So you can see actually that okay, it's doing double connections from there. The reason why I was able to type SRV and go to server is because of this entry in host in config file. Now this is again very interesting file in SSH. I can create host any name, and internally it would get translated to this name. So that's how it happened. So all I gave is this name, but it changed that to this name, and then I was logging to gateway. This is one of the other method. And final and most interesting method is, and the problem with this also can be used for remote shell, requires key pair target and host, because I need to give auto command generation. That's why auto command execution. That's why I need a key. This is most interesting one of transparent SSH gateways using proxy command. Let me do it. We are again using .config file. Hostname, proxy command, SSH gateway, NC this. SRV1 proxy command. No, I need to give host, which I've already given. Proxy command. SSH, then gateway hostname, which is gateway in our case, then NC target hostname, which is server 22. Now problem with this is this does not work with keys, but I can do this. SRV1 is asking me for gateway's password. Okay, it does take some time because it's calling another process of NC. Now, if you know NC, it is a Netcat. It's Telnet-like thing, wonderful thing, and does require a session on its own. But till it comes, the advantage, the disadvantage is I need to give password. I'm not able to use keys with it, and the advantage that is, it can be used not just for remote shell but also for remote file copy. I mean, even SCP would work. It's still taking time. I mean, this is one more disadvantage that I could have added in that, but it's a bit slow because of that NC. So it will eventually come there. Since I've given SRV, it has asked me for gateway's password, and from there it will take me to server. Let me go into next session, which is secure tunnel creation. Now, if you remember the initial definition of the SSH, which stated that it can also provide security services to other network services, and that is using this secure tunnel creation. It's a bit confusing, but if you understand, it's a very helpful feature of SSH. Now the command is L. Okay, there are two things why you would need a secure shell or a secure tunnel. One is to send traffic which is generated in local machine to remote machine encrypted, or to redirect traffic that is being generated in remote machine to your local machine encrypted. Okay, it's just that encryption feature that SSH adds, and this is how we do it. If you want to send traffic which is generating in your machine and send it to different machines, then we would use L, because we want to open a port locally in a local machine. But if we want to redirect remote hosts traffic to us, we need to give R, because in that case it will open a listening port in remote machine. And other than that, a local port which you need to create, new port to listen on which, and RP is remote port, which is already getting some data, currently listening port. And similarly R, let me see, now it's asking me for server's password. Now if you see, oh come on, I gave wrong password. Okay, let me do it in gateway machine. Okay, for that first I need to have let us do this local creation of file. LP should receive clear text data. RP currently listening. Let us do this. We'll create a new port which is 1234. Remote host would be server. RP and remote port. One two three four is new port that it will create. Remote host server, and then remote port would be, I can make it connect to 2222. Now I should make sure that there's something listening on 2222, which I'll do in a minute, and then remote host, which is server. Now for me to listen to make something listen on 2222, I'll make NC listen there. Okay, now that is NC, that is listening on port 2222. Let me make a copy of this. Okay, so it has actually logged into the box, but also it has created this 1234 in client machine. Let me tell you what it does. Now what I'm going to do is pass on this message, secure message, to local host on port 1234. Now what happens is, if I go to server, I have received that secure message in server. Though if you remember, I had passed on to localhost in gateway. So ideally it could have sent it to gateway. Yes, it did send to gateway, but because of this secure tunnel, it had transferred this message from this 1234 port to remote host on port 2222, where NC was already listening. And that's why I could receive the secure message on this NC port. Oh, there's something wrong. Probably I'll come to that later. Now to create an incoming tunnel, all I had to do is change it to R. In this case, 1234 will be listened on the server. Previously, if you remember, 1234 was listening on gateway itself, because I had set NC local, I had transferred this message to localhost on 1234, which is on gateway. So previously, I had executed SSH command on local machine, and that's where 1234 was listening. Now 1234 would listen on server. I need to give localhost here, and then local port, remote host, localhost, local port, and server, remote server. Let me do this again. So I've logged into this. Now let us see. We should have port 1234 listening on server. See, it's listening on local host port. Now I can send traffic from remote host to this. No, all I need to do is let me log into this. Okay, let me go to this definition again. It says LP new port to receive data on, which is 12222. 2222 is new port, so we had created it in server. So let me log into server, and I already logged in. And localhost, which is gateway, is already is ready to receive traffic in 1234. So I need to send that traffic in gateway. This is gateway. Okay, there's something wrong. Listen remote host or incoming, whereas RP listening on remote port, which is receiving clear text data. So I should be making RP, which is 1234 to listen on something on remote host, which is server. Okay, I think I need to send this traffic to. Let me go to different session. What is listening here is in gateway, and in server. In server 1234 is listening. So I should be sending traffic to server using gateway. So let me do this. Okay. So it has gone there. Okay, but I mean, since there is no listener here, we could not see it coming here. But over TCP dump, we should have been able to see that there is a secure message going from this, because since server is listening on 1234, and that is using a secure connection. So that's how we could transfer that message from gateway to server. Next is connection multiplexing. Now, the advantage that you get when let's say you have logged into gateway from here. No, I'm already in server. So this is I'll move the file so that it will ask me for password. Come on. Okay. Now it's asking me for password. I don't want it to log in without password or passphrase. So let me log into server. So I had logged in from gateway to server, and let me go to, let's say if I had to create one more session from same gateway to server. It's again asking me for password. Now if I want to avoid this, this is when we can use this feature of connection multiplexing. It says in config file, enter these commands. So let me do that. I'm doing it in gateway. Just giving another name instead of server because it might, I don't want to confuse myself. Control and then file name. There are some variables that I can give along with it for it to create unique file names, but okay. I need to log in as .server1 because that's what I have created in config file. Okay, I forgot to give host name. Let me do it this way. Okay, now already logged in from gateway to server. Now there is one more session somewhere where there was gateway. Okay, so this is again gateway. Now let me try again, log into gateway to server. Okay, let me open another session to gateway. This I had logged in as root. Okay, probably it works only over terminal. Let me go into the because over SSH, because I'm already doing SSH to it, so that's why it's not allowing. So let me go to the physical access of the device probably. Now let me open another terminal. This is gateway. Now see, if from shell, from direct host, it was not working over SSH. From direct host, second time I did not have to give any password. This is what is called multiplexing. Since you already have a session from same host to same host on over the same username, it does not ask you for password next time. And it's not logging out because I have to log out from here also. Now it will log out. Just to repeat it. Okay, I have created first time it asked for password. Second time it did not ask for password because it's doing multiplexing of sessions. Okay, there are some references that you can check. Best is man page, SSH for man SSH, man SSH underscore config or man SSHD. and then open SSH manual page, Wikipedia, and this book. If you are really interested on SSH, you can just check this book out. Questions? So, I mean, if you have any questions, I mean, are there any questions posted already?
Yes, the questions are already shared with you.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I have quite a few questions. Can we give password? I have a very good question from Varun Goel. It is what is asking is, can we give password inline to SSH command? SSH is a secure secure access thing, and that's why they have given so many security features around it. So you can't give passwords inline, but other thing is you can create a blank key and log in with that blank key, because when you give password inline, it's absolutely visible. So I have very similar question from Balaji V also. Is asking how do you execute commands from shell scripts. So where you have to enter password. Again, the key feature is mostly used only for shell script. Now, if you can create a blank a key with a blank passphrase, then you can do that. Then I have one more question. I mean, RSA key and DSA key difference is being asked by Sanjay Sudhakaran. As far as I know, RSA is more secure and it provides more bits than DSA, but I need to check myself on that. Okay, so there is Gagan who's asking, how did the trust between gateway and server established beforehand? That's because I had already created a file, private key and public key combination in between the server and gateway, and that too with the blank password. So when you log in from server to gateway, it was not asking for password. I mean, I have one question from Dennis who's asking how encryption is being done for SSH. Let me show you my SSH client PuTTY, which I like to use. I can show you what all encryption it can do. It can do triple DES, AES also. So it all depends on the algorithm that you use. I mean, the working of each algorithm is out of scope of this seminar, and is also a lot bigger representation than I can do one. So, but it generally depends on the encryption algorithm that you use and keys that you provide to it. So that and it uses most of the industry standard encryption algorithms, such as triple DES, Blowfish, AES. Can I log into another user without his permission like before using keys? So if you remember, the question is logging in to different user account. Now if you remember, I had to give keys in that user's authorized key file. Now you will be able to enter key into that user's authorized key file only when you have access of that user. So key is just another way of accessing it, but basically you should be authorized first to log in as that user. So first you need to log in as that user using password, then open authorized keys file and then append the public key. And then you can use keys to log in as that user. So key is yet another method, but it is not something that you could bypass. User from one user can log into other user or something. No, that's something that cannot be done. So there is a question from Balaji and is asking if you want to execute multiple commands onto remote SSH server. Now using inline command, all you can do is execute one command, but that command can be a script which in turn can execute more commands. So that way you can achieve it. But if you see, I had given cat and file name, so it just takes one command. Even if you give space, there is a space in between files. The command and the file, it does not take that. So I mean, you can execute just one command, but that command can be a script. I have a question from Vikas who was asking, if we can use expect. Expect is a different scripting thing altogether, scripting language altogether, which is used for automated logins and things like that. Yes, Vikas, you can do that. I mean, expect is one more way of doing it, and we are focusing on SSH now. So there is a question from Mayur, and he wanted to know randomly generated port at client. Now, Mayur, it depends, what you're trying to achieve. So since you are asking question as randomly generated port at client is anyway going to receive the traffic from the server. Let's say if you have a mail client which is going to connect to a mail server. So in that case, all you do is configure a tunnel between your client and mail server over SSH, whereas in server it will connect on port 25. So and on your client it will listen on port 2525 or something, whichever you whichever you configure it to listen on, and then what you have to do is configure your mail client to connect to local host on that 2525 port. So I mean, so the source port actually doesn't matter. All you need to do it is that local source port can keep changing, but you need to connect. For you, it's always some fixed port that you're going to connect. In this case, you're connecting to 2525 and getting connected to server. So I mean, this question, I'm not sure if it's very relevant, but you can't generally connect to an unknown port. No, so there is a question from Mansoor Ali, and he's asking if we use TCP wrapper, can we use private and public key to log in? Absolutely not. I mean, if you had seen in my demonstration, I had used TCP wrapper host.allow and host.deny files to deny direct access from client to server. For that, I had to hop through gateway. So, I mean, TCP wrapper is TCP wrapper. You can't bypass it using keys. Yeah, you need to have, host.allow and host.deny entries right before doing anything, any service at all, be it SSH, SMTP, HTTP, anything. Okay, there is an interesting question by Avinash. He's asked, can we trace data transferred between two terminals through SSH? What I understand is from this question is trace. He wants to know how the data is being transferred from one SSH server to SSH client to SSH server. So Avinash, you need to have things like sniffer. Linux by default comes with CLI based sniffer named TCP dump, but since SSH is encrypted, though you make a sniffer listen on any of the ports and do your sniffing, all you will see is some junk traffic because it's SSH encrypted traffic. If it was Telnet, yes, you would be able to see what's being transferred, but not with SSH, and that's why that was the problem in Telnet. It was anyone who has differ in between will be able to see the data going from client to server, including passwords. And SSH has been created to stop that. So all you will see is some junk traffic which is encrypted when you open up a sniffer in any of the client or server hosts. I have a question from Rahul. He's asking what is use of local port and remote port functions that you explained. So Rahul, I had just given an example of securing communication from between SMTP client and SMTP server. Let me tell that again with this context. Now, in that example, local port would be something that is listening on my port, which is 2525, and remote port would be 25. This is in case of local forwarding, where in which you are receiving data on local machine that you forward to remote host. But if you are receiving data on remote host that you want to forward securely to local machine, then remote port changes to what is already listening, and local port is where you would have listener listening for traffic. So once the traffic comes out of encryption domain of SSH, it will hit that local listener, and that local listener do whatever it's supposed to do. So I think I don't have any more questions. And I have one from can we make our local host as gateway itself and generate keys there itself? Can we make, let me try to understand this question. Can we make our local host as gateway itself and local host as, Okay, the gateway, I had to use gateway because there was no direct connectivity allowed between client to server. So if I am able to make my local host as gateway, yeah, then you don't need any intermediate hosts. So yeah, so that was the question from Chavakula, if I'm not giving the wrong name, Chavakula Krishna. Okay, then I have another question from Gagan is saying, how does remote machine know that it has to decrypt the data? Now, if you see, this entire session was around SSH, so remote machine should be running on SSH, should be running SSH server, and on from local machine you will have to SSH into remote host. So when you SSH daemon by default knows that it has to do encryption and decryption. So the question from Gagan is, how would remote machine know that it has to decrypt data? Because it is going through SSH. SSH protocol, the flow of traffic would be from your machine to his machine. On his machine, it will end up in his SSH server port, which is by default 22. Then decryption will happen, and that decrypted traffic will end in the target port. So it's because it's SSH, and encryption decryption is job, so it will do. I mean, I have a question from Swaminathan is saying possible uses of SSH agent. SSH agent is something that I've not touched in this topic, but it's yet another wonderful tool which will help you log in. All you have to do is open up SSH agent. Let me do it here. Not sure, yeah. And then you need to add the file to it. Add using SSH add the key file to it using SSH add, and one time it will ask you for password if the key file has got passphrase, and since then if you're logging into any host from inside that agent and that host supports this key, then you will no more be asked for password. I mean, once you had given the passphrase for in SSH when adding a key to SSH agent, it will remember that passphrase and it will reuse the passphrase whenever you log into any host from that agent. So it's a convenient way of doing logging in from one host to another host without typing the passphrase or keys multiple times. So that's what SSH agent does. So I have a question from Ankit saying, how does traffic move from SSH port to target host? Of course, Ankit, you should have a basic layer 3 connectivity between your SSH client and server. And if you don't have, the traffic will not move. So if you should have proper access control lists or routes in between, and only then traffic will move. But I mean, the path that traffic will take is generally, I mean, if it is in LAN, then it would look at routing table and go, and if it is WAN, again, this routing table, but it will take different paths. So basically, you need to have layer 3 connectivity first, and also layer 4, right? I mean, if there is any application firewall or any firewall blocking port 22 in between, then there's a problem. I have a question from Gagan. Can user application use local and remote port number that is used in SSH tunnel? Now, by use, there are, I mean, what do you mean by use here? I mean, using could be for getting the data or for sending the data. So if I mean, this is very basic to the TCP IP itself. If the port is already listening, you can't open another application to listen onto the same port. But if that port is free, you can use that port to listen and send the data over encrypted data over SSH tunnel. Can user application use the local and remote port number that is used in SSH tunnel? So I mean, at the end of the day, the final application needs to send data to either local or remote ports. So it definitely will have to send data to a listener, and then there is a listening, and then the client machine will get the traffic. So yes, there has to be some application level traffic that is sending data to the ports. Not sure if I understood your question correctly, Kagan. Then there is a question from Bhavna Mishra. Do we have any key generation software? So for SSH, no. For SSH, all you have is like SSH-keygen, whatever I had shown. But otherwise, also you have like there are so many other private key PKI kind of deployment that you can use. I think you can use them along with SSH also, but I have not yet explored that feature. So there is a question from Swaminathan is saying, can I run SSH on port 22 on server and redirect firewall port 8022 to 22? Of course you can do, Swaminathan, but this has got nothing to do with SSH. You need to configure the firewall to do port redirection. So this has absolutely got nothing to do with SSH. I mean, you can there are modern day firewalls, even free ones, you can do this port redirection. You can't just, redirect it to 21, you can redirect it to any internal ports, be it 80, I mean any port, provided it listens inside. So yes, the answer to it is yes, you can do it, but this has got nothing to do with SSH. So Swaminathan had some instances wherein which he had tried to redirect a port from 8022 to 22 and it did not work. Now I ended up changing SSH port on server to match firewall port. Now there is, technically it should work. I have myself done it many a times. So if it does not work, then there could be many other parameters to be checked. Yeah, it all depends on the environment, but yes, it does work, it should work, and if it does not work, then there is some problem that you need to fix.
Yeah, I think most of the questions have been answered. So we can conclude the session now.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you all for joining this webinar. So, I mean, there is my email ID, just in case if you want to get in touch. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks Gaurang for this informative webinar. It was indeed a very big success. I would also like to thank all the attendees for making this webinar a huge success. Recording of this webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Gentlemen, the next webinar is happening on techgig.com tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's on April 10th at 3 p.m. Topic is seamless deployment of Java application on Windows Azure using Eclipse. Speaker is Mr. Nilesh Wadke, Principal, Education and Research at Infosys Limited. Once again, thanks a lot. Goodbye.